The Rocky and now Creed franchise are easily the gold standard when it comes to boxing cinema. Each entry will interest me and I will always check them out. The first Creed movie is a modern American classic, and I believe 2 is heavily underrated and deserves much more respect. Creed 3 is a sequel worthy of your attention. Within the first minute, you can see that this is indeed Donnie's story. Gone are the cold streets of Philadelphia that are a signature of this series. This time around, the whole movie takes place in Los Angeles, and it truly has that LA vibe. Creed even gets his own version of the famous stair scene. By doing so, the movie feels fresh and more like a spin-off and a reboot, as Creed 1 and 2 are so heavily tethered to Rocky lore. Donnie is truly on his own and is forced to face something that he has buried deep within his own past. Jonathan Majors may be the MCU's new villain, but man, he is absolutely terrifying here. He's certainly charming, but is always on the verge of punching you in the face. His speech patterns are an interesting choice, as he is supposed to be a guy who spent half his life in jail. He is intelligent, but there are times where he stutters and mumbles his words when he gets too emotional, and it just adds another subtle layer to his performance. His off-rhythm approach is also applied to his boxing style. He moves in a very unnatural, herky-jerky motion that makes his fighting style unpredictable and dangerous. Brilliant stuff, and I'm dying to see more of this guy. Michael B. Jordan makes a fine transition from the young hothead in the first Creed to an older, wiser Creed here. His chemistry with Majors is on point, and you can really buy into their troubled past. Honestly, I can watch these guys just banter all day. Jordan plays the straight man to Majors' wild card, and it really brings out the best in him. My favorite scenes of his are when he confronts Majors on the beach, and when he finally reveals his past to Tessa Thompson. These scenes are absolutely heartbreaking, as you can see Creed is doing his best to keep it all together, when really, he is just crumbling on the inside. Reminded me of classic Tony Leung in the great Hong Kong cinema days of yesteryear. But let's talk about the action, as that is what my channel is all about. Before I say anything, I want to clarify I'm far from a boxing expert, but I am a huge fan of combat sports as a whole. Boxing fight scenes are much more difficult to film than a traditional fight scene, as we have the actual sport to compare it with. A lot of times, to sell a punch on camera, you have to throw it incorrectly, so I understand that in a movie, it is pretty damn hard to make boxing look realistic and cinematic at the same time. The first Creed focused more on the theatrical presentation, reminiscent of a stage play or a WWE fight, whereas Creed 2 centered on realistic technical moves that showcase the complexity of boxing strategy and game plan. Creed 3 does both, but more so on the theatrical side of things. Michael B. Jordan has been very open about his anime influences, unlike certain filmmakers. My throat. I think it works well in Creed's rematch with Ricky Conlan. The anime style he uses here is to highlight Creed's mental strategy as he is reading Conlan's movement patterns and waiting for the right moment to strike. It reminded me of Rocky 2 when Rocky waited until the later rounds to switch back to Southpaw, or in Creed 2 when Donnie was trying to land his counter hook. It could also be heavily influenced by Guy Ritchie's fighting analysis style in the Sherlock Holmes movies. But you can make the argument that those scenes were also inspired by anime. Where I feel it is less effective is in the final fight. No disrespect to Michael B. Jordan, I appreciate the creative swing he does here. It does go into fantastic, surrealistic territory, but that's kind of a staple of the Rocky franchise. You can see elements of it in Rocky 4, Rocky Balboa, and even the first Creed. Martin Scorsese had his version of it in his own boxing movie, Raging Bull. This is just Michael B. Jordan's version of that. It's certainly original and different. I may even come around on it after a time has passed. Regardless, much respect for trying something new. Most people will rank this second best in the Creed trilogy. Now, I do certainly think this movie is highly entertaining. I would argue it has the most realistic training sequence of the 3 movies, with more focus on sparring and pad work with real-life trainers like Mick Queen. I'm going to say it's third best. Now here's my reasoning. Creed 1 is an absolute masterpiece. Creed 2 is very layered, with so much depth that features different players and perspectives, making it the heat of boxing movies, and god damn it, y'all gonna realize that eventually. Nevertheless, Creed 3 achieves what it sets out to do, and it steers the franchise in an exciting new direction. As for where I want this series to go, I wouldn't mind if they took some things from reality, as boxing and combat sports have been pretty interesting to say the least in the past few years. Incorporating the Paul brothers would be pretty cool, but maybe not Jake Paul, as I think that would just anger a bunch of boxing purists. But how about Logan Paul? Maybe feature him in a role similar to Hulk Hogan's Thunder Lips in Rocky 3. They could even use elements of Conor vs. Floyd, having MMA fighters crossing over, or even using Conor himself, as he seems pretty down to be acting in Hollywood movies nowadays. That is for this episode, guys. I'm hard at work on an Action of Christopher Nolan video essay. Please consider subscribing to look out for that. Turn on notifications for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again.